If you clicked on this episode or this YouTube video, you most likely know who Chris Walker is. But if you don't, I'll give you a little bit of context. He has completely revolutionized marketing and more specifically business to business marketing. So by the end of this webinar, you're not only going to be more motivated than you have ever been to create content for your business, but you're also going to know how to do it, what to avoid, and the exact strategies that Chris has used to scale to over $20 million in revenue. Now, this is about podcasting, but podcasting is just the vehicle. The ultimate goal here is to do exactly what Chris and I and all of our clients do on a daily basis, which is to create content just like this to drive more revenue and attract ideal clients to you. So if you're a business owner or you're in charge of sales or marketing in any function within a business, there's going to be a lot of takeaways here from this episode with myself and Chris. So I appreciate you. My name is Ryan R. Sullivan, and let's get to it. Before we get into any specific questions, Chris, is there anything just top of mind for you lately when it comes to organic content, podcasting for B2B, or just any way that you kind of want to just crack this can open, and then we're kind of going to move from there?
I mean, gosh, like specifically on LinkedIn, when I look at the comments and when I hear what some people are saying about like, oh, like Chris, you must be sad, like your likes have gone down, or like, how am I supposed to compete with these people that are using engagement pods and they post some fucking fluffy post and get 1,400 likes, like poor me. And it's just like that shit doesn't matter. The shit doesn't matter. And it is so empty trying to chase likes and comments and play a little game that where your self-worth and your happiness are tied up in whether or not you get 100 likes or not. And I've played that game before and I know that it sucks. And so I can save you the time. And it is so much better to talk about the things that you care about, to talk about the things that you're passionate about. If people have noticed over the past couple of years, my content has evolved and switched. I talk about different things now. And when I talk about things that are more niche and more detailed and more executive level, there's less people that it's relevant to, and therefore I get less likes and engagement. But you know what's different? My business results are better. My happiness is better. And I get to continue to, I use the podcast and content as a creative outlet. Like when I finish this, I hope like one of you get some advice and learn something and do something better or help, do something like that. And it makes me feel good, to be able to just share those ideas. And so that's where I want to start, because I hear in the background and I hear people talking, whether they're talking about my content or they're talking about their own content. And it's just likes and comments are not the barometer. It's not why we should do this.
Yeah, I think that ties into what is your job as a marketer, and does it do likes? Is likes a metric? Like how many? There's so many metrics. So it's like the thing that you can't control is how many likes you get. I've moved away from likes, comments, impressions in terms of quantity. I track it, I know it, but it's not a metric that I'm mulling over on a day-to-day basis.
Your job as a marketer, it's interesting for me, right? Because I do marketing, but I also own businesses, and so I can talk about that in both ways. But as a marketer, your job is to anticipate what is your prospective customer needing to hear, and how are you able to deliver that in a way, in a medium, in a format, in the way that you communicate it, at the right time, in the right place, so that they get what they need to hear. And that could be addressing an objection. It could be reframing a problem that they're having. It could be you know, being a little antagonistic or being very like empathetic and nice. And so it's how you communicate, what you communicate. I think what a lot of marketers miss is that they've never run a sales process before. And what it like, and people like, you know, will take this out of context. Be like, oh, Chris Walker doesn't get it. But what is marketing? Marketing is sales at scale. Marketing is being able to uh, communicate instead of doing one demo with one company, being able to communicate a message to thousands of people or thousands of companies at the same time, um, and being able to drive a message home in a way that is not salesy. Like I'm not desperate when I'm communicating this for someone to be like, "Oh my God, that hit hard. I want to buy stuff." So there's like a very careful balance. But I view it as anticipating what your customer and prospective customers need to hear, and then communicating that.
It's gold. It's gold. Thank you for opening that up. That was super duper broad and difficult, and I didn't ask a specific question. But this is the type of podcast we
Let's
like to
go.
run.
Let's go.
Exactly, man. So, but let's dive into a little bit. So, okay, we are on, like I said, the organic content side for podcasting, meaning that a lot of company content doesn't work. It's the same as it's always been. It's boring. It's a, it's an announcement, which is the worst. It's a quote from a CEO, and nobody knows who the CEO is, etc. Podcasting is dynamic. It's a little bit unpredictable. It's the fuck around and find out of marketing, in my opinion. All right, and that's how I see it. I want to know from your perspective, when you're speaking to, and working with companies at the level that you are, what's the conversation around podcasting? Do they get it? Are you pushing it? Are you pushing back against it? Can you just talk a little bit about the landscape of how you kind of look at podcasting for B2B or go to market or what have you?
Yeah. So I guess at this point, my position is the people that get it will do it, and the people that don't won't. And I have no interest in convincing the people that don't want to do it to do it. Um, and so, you know, do I think it's a massive opportunity way outside of pipeline generation? I think the biggest benefit is being able to craft and understand the message and be really close to your market and feed that back into your product and your sales pitch. And there's like way more than just like, oh, I got a couple leads from this like podcast episode. I found an interesting effect recently where the biggest benefit is actually on customer retention and expansion. Like my current customers listen to this, they share it inside of their company to other stakeholders. We get multi-threaded. Now all of a sudden we're working with 3 departments instead of 1 department. We get that expansion revenue. We're more, you know, entrenched when we have better retention and lifetime value. Like that is a massively underappreciated part of podcasting. And so I think that like, look, like a guy like Adam Robinson, right? Like I didn't have to go over to Adam. I spend a bunch of time on his boat and we hang out with people and we talk business. I didn't need to go over to him and be like, hey man, I think that you need to do this podcast, right? He gets it. And then he goes, okay, I'm going to do this is going to work. People want this. What am I going to do? I'm just going to replicate what Chris Walker is doing and position it to early stage founders and salespeople. Boom, success, easy. And I've been telling people literally, like, you can take my exact playbook, copy it to your audience, and have a ton of success with it. And so at this point now, I don't push it like I used to. Do I think it's still a massive opportunity? Yeah, especially given that it costs almost no money to produce a podcast, and then you get all of this benefit out of it. And so, and I think that companies still like underestimate social media broadly. Maybe because of the lack of like measurement and attribution, but probably just because of the lack that they're not in touch with their customer and what their customer does. And so they continue to write blogs for SEO, spend $25,000 a month doing that, which I'm not saying that SEO is bad. I just think that we need to think about our priorities and how the world works today. And so
I'm with
people that get it will do it.
I was going to say, yeah. So you've seen this. We've all seen it. It's the founder ego podcast, right? Like I'm the man, I have a successful business, or the woman, whoever it might be. And my network is incredible. So I'm just going to interview all these great people that I know and get 100 views on YouTube or whatever it might be. I'm not saying that doesn't work. I'm also not saying the interview show doesn't work. We're literally doing it right now. But when it comes to like how you would advise a already successful business to go out and start doing this podcasting thing, do you have any sort of lean towards interview show, co-host, do some LinkedIn lives, pre-recorded? Like, Do you lean any certain way, or is it just it depends answer?
I just love the mix. Like,
Yeah.
I don't think that like people are like, "Oh, we're gonna like make the show and then it's gonna be this format and we're gonna create all these constraints and be in this little box that we have to sit in." I do all of it. Like I'll do a keynote in front of 1,000 people, record it and do that. We'll do a podcast here that's a LinkedIn Live. I'll take a 10-minute clip from like a coffee meeting where I have an AirPod in my ear and I'm recording what I say at a coffee meeting with an entrepreneur and use that as a podcast. I'll do a weekly Q&A show where I just do consulting for the market and for people to help them. Like, and all of them can work. And why would you constrain yourself to only doing one? I think that it's amazing to be able to mix a bunch of different things together. I personally think that, and what's worked for me is 80-90% of me communicating my thoughts, my experience, my opinions, and 10-20% of me interviewing experts that have a perspective on things that my audience cares about that aligns with the things that I believe and understand. And I think that's the right mix. I think if you're 100% interview show, you're just promoting other people's message, like, and you're just trying to draft off of their known audience. And honestly, I just don't see a huge benefit in it. You lose all the other stuff, which is like understanding your customer, like getting the objections, feeding it back into the product. You don't get that stuff when you're just interviewing people.
Yeah, and here's a way. I mean, at least this is how we're doing it. I only interview clients, and that's a strategy, and that works really well for bottom of funnel. But in this case, you're not a client. We've never worked together. We've done some podcasts together, obviously exchange on LinkedIn almost daily, but I'm doing 12 of these lives this year, right? Like one a month. Then at the end of the year, I can figure out, was it worth it? Was it not?
Yeah,
But it's like, I'm moving away from the all or nothing podcast style where, like
good.
you're saying, like it has to be this and this niche and this style and co-host only or interview only. It's like, yeah, just do content, right? There's a misconception too that it takes up time. This saves time, right? Like if you're like, hey, we're like a B2B company, 10 to 50 million, we might want to do this podcasting thing. I could just send them this now, right? Like
Yeah,
it saves you time, right? Or here's the thing, it should if you design it
it should.
correctly, right? So what made you start your podcast when you started it? Not the mindset now, but like what was your mindset then?
If you go back in time, I was in late 2019 and early 2020. I was going around to different cities and doing a live event. So I would like do a live event in Miami with Josh Braun. I did one in LA with this guy Justin Welsh. I had ones planned in San Francisco and in Austin, Texas. And then all of a sudden, this thing called COVID happened, and you couldn't do. So I had to cancel the March event in San Francisco. I had to cancel the April event in Austin, Texas. And this guy named Gaetano Dinardi and I like saw some other people doing it. Everyone was locked down at that point. I mean, I think everyone remembers what it felt like. You like couldn't even like leave your house at some points. And we're like, let's just do a Zoom and get some people together and talk about marketing. And we did a Zoom and we recorded it, and 17 people showed up, and we loved doing it. And the people were like, hey, we did that. Will you come and do it again next week? And I called Gaetano and I was like, hey man, I like doing that. And he was like, hey man, I like doing that too. Let's do it again. And then we did it again for another 100+ weeks together. And so there was no grand plan around like starting a podcast. It was actually like very grassroots and very authentic, I guess. Like we just enjoyed doing it, sharing the ideas, and it was a great benefit that other people also got a lot of value from it.
And let's take a pause real quick. 73 people on here right now. Appreciate every single one of you, but this is it right here. Like this is it, right? When does this happen, right? Our day-to-day life is a client needs this. You're answering an email. Every time, right? It's like you hit up a client. You don't go, hey, do you want to be on my podcast? You go, hey, do this invoice, right? Like this is fun to do and it works and we're here with everybody. Like what's not awesome about this? I don't know, man. Maybe I'm just the podcast guy, so this is just how I think. But
I get fired up. I love doing this, but Tuesdays are one of my favorite days of the week. After I do 2 to 4 every single Tuesday, and I leave feeling energized and creative and fulfilled. So yeah, I get it totally.
do you find that you get a lot of ideas from just doing content, like ideas for more content or in your business or just by like
It's
sheer
incredible.
talking about it?
Yeah, and especially, I think about it like watching film. So like an athlete will like play a game and then like rewatch the film and say, "Hey, I could have explained this better," or "Wow, that was like a really good idea. I need to figure out how to apply that." And so I don't watch my videos, but I do re-listen to the audio and I listen to the things that I said. Oh, I could have said that better. Oh, I need that idea. Hey, I gave that person that advice, but now I can see how that advice also applies to my business. I need to figure out how to apply that to myself. And so, yeah, I think there's like massive benefits to going through it in terms of like creativity, idea generation, the format of like being live. I can't be like, oh, time out, guys. I want to like think about what I have to say. It drives you to get those ideas that are like deep inside of you out. And I think that's super valuable as long as you have the confidence to share your ideas. And sometimes they don't come out the right way, and sometimes you need to watch the film and say, oh, I could have done it that way. But yeah, massively a great creative outlet for sure.
Don't go and look up my episodes from 2018. That's all I'm
Same.
saying. Do they still get downloads? Somehow they do. But, and that's so okay. That's kind of there's like 100 different things to double click on. So let's just double click on that. The power of YouTube, the power of podcast platforms, Spotify, Apple, the SEO benefits, not only Google SEO, but YouTube SEO. Can you talk about why you do that? Oh, the post production and the clips. Like, well, let me ask this: what percentage of your LinkedIn content is clips from you talking like this?
98%,
Why?
because it's easy. It's like the easiest method. And when you start with video, you get video, audio, written. But if you start with written, you like you might use AI or some like fake way to get there, but it's hard to go from written to audio to back to
Mm,
video. And so and then it's just the method that you communicate best. Some people are great at writing, right? Maybe they write a book, they write a blog, they have a Substack, they have a newsletter, like amazing. Like that medium can work if that's a good medium for you. I've found that, especially with the way that social media is moving, that vertical short form video is the move at present, and video generally was the move 5 years ago. And just because LinkedIn didn't incentivize it with their like algorithmic metrics, it still was the prevailing format that people consumed. And so I think it's so fundamental of just like, what do my customers do, and then how can I be there? Like it seems so simple, but like I don't know. I find, especially as companies get larger and executives get further away from their customer, that people just lose sight of the absolute basics, and they like make assumptions of, oh, we sell to doctors. Doctors don't use Instagram. They're professionals. Like they only go to conferences to learn. And like I think people would just get so out of touch with the people, the actual people you're marketing to. Sure, they're a professional, but when they take their scrubs off or their suit off and they go home, they're a human,
yep.
and they do what a lot of other humans do.
I'm so glad that I started in music because it really taught me the John Mayer quote of "the audience is always right." And it relates to what you're saying because the further you get away or remove yourself from that, the kind of the worse your content gets. And it's the same thing for music. You still have to go out and do shows. It's like you can have 1 million streams on Spotify, but how many people showed up to watch you live, right? And I kind of see this as that as a obviously this is live, then you have in-person speaking and there's other ways to kind of couch it, but I see this as one version of that where it's like you still got to get on stage.
Yeah, yeah. I think there's a balance though, because I think if you follow that, you can get caught up in telling people what they want to hear, not what they need to hear. Um, and regardless of that, some people will be like, I get some nasty gram comments or a DM every once in a while, or someone will send me a screenshot from the CMO Cool Kids Club community, someone talking shit about me. Because I tell people what they need to hear, not what they want to hear. And at the beginning, you get hate for it. I remember how 2019, lead gen to demand gen, everyone wanted to run their MQL machine. They said, this guy's an idiot. I don't believe agency boy. And then what? 5 years later, literally everyone fucking does what I said. And I'm in that place again. And I think there's a balance between if you understand your audience so deeply, you're able to communicate things that they know are true, but are tough pills to swallow. And I think sometimes that is the most powerful, because you have to take the hate in the short term. And when I look internally at all the people, like, everyone sees the same problems that I'm talking about. They just don't want to get fired to bring it up. So it's much easier for me to say it, because I don't care. Like, if I'm not in the politics, it's one of my most favorite things about the position that I'm in.
So what? Yeah. So tell me about what position you're in now, because it's not the same as even 2023. So what is your day to day different? Has anything really changed? Like, what has changed, and what? And obviously, Passeto is kind of what I'm leading into here. But
Yeah.
what does that look like?
Yeah, I think if we like go super entrepreneur, I started my first company in 2019 with $3,000 in my bank account. And I had $60,000 in student loans. I had to sell my car because I couldn't afford the parking and the insurance, and I had to go somewhere. I would take the subway.
I would never do that, by
Um,
the way. You're crazy for that.
and I think that when you have nothing, and that in order to get to where you want to go, sometimes you have to take two steps backwards to set yourself up to take 100 steps forward.
Yeah.
And if you never take those 2 steps back, you're stuck there. And so uh, at the beginning, when you have no money, no resources, no audience, no brand, and all you have is your time, that I had to fucking grind for years. I said no to weddings, no to golf trips, no to ski trips, no to fun leisurely activities, no to hobbies. I would 6 or 7 days a week. My weekend was going to the beach for 2 hours on a Sunday to get a little relaxing in, and I'd get back and hit it. And that was what it was like for me for the first 4 or 5 years of my entrepreneurial journey. And at you get to a point then where you don't just have time anymore. Now you have resources, you have a brand, you have financials, you have money. And then after that, you can start to use the money, resources, and time and stuff to buy back your time, and to be a lot more. So I'm in a different part of the game now where I'm just able to use different resources to be able to have great people around me, to be able to use my brand to get involved in opportunities that I wouldn't have gotten 5 years ago. That I now have equity ownership in 4 total businesses. And I can use my experience to now create a lot of leverage, where instead of me being the operator or me being the salesperson, I can be the person that helps the CEO make the right decisions, lead their company, execute against their vision, avoid big mistakes that I've made in the past, whether that's financials or other things. And so it's a different part of the game for me. And my the 2 phrases that are coming up for me currently, one that I'm living by totally, slow is fast, meaning that when you try to go fast, you end up usually slowing yourself down because you take a shortcut or you do something and you pay the price for it later. Think about the fad diet, right? You could just do the right things, eat right, exercise, and be in shape, or you could take Ozempic for 3 months and then fucking, when you get off of it, gain all the weight back. 70% of people do. And so you feel like you're going faster in the short term, but in the long term, you actually are going slower to the goal that you have. So that's one thing. And then another thing is just defining what freedom means to me. And I feel privileged to be able to think about this now. I'm not always. I have empathy for the people that are, have to be where I was 5 or 6 years ago and be hustling and grinding. And if you got it in you, go for it. It's 100% worth it. And the best part of it is not the financial outcomes or things like the results that you get. It's actually the person that you become. It's how you feel. It's who you are. It's the character. It's the discipline. It's the commitment. Those are intangibles that no one can take away from you, that go with you forever. And so I've been spending a lot of time thinking about what freedom means to me. Um, and that could be, you know, financial freedom, freedom of time, freedom to only do the type of work that fires me up, that I look at my calendar and I'm like, fuck yes, I want to do this stuff, and take all the things that are not a fuck yes and say, I'll delegate this or not do it. I had one situation yesterday where, you know, so I still do some sales for my new company, right? It's all getting off the ground. We're 3 people. And so I have active opportunities, and there's some customers that are like, wow, this is like a perfect fit customer. And then there's some that are like I could squeeze this one in, but it's like not a perfect fit customer. So I have one of those, and they come back to me and they're like, hey, like, we got this big meeting. Like, I need you to prepare all this stuff so you can prove how you're going to help us. And I was like, I don't need to do this. Not interested. Like, I don't need to convince somebody that they need to work with me anymore. I'd rather just not get the customer. And again, I feel privileged to be able to do that, but it goes back to the slow is fast concept. It's like, this customer doesn't feel right to me. What they're asking for doesn't feel right. So yeah, I could do all the stuff and squeeze it in, but that not feel right is a sign. They're probably going to sign, they're going to churn in 2 months, or they're going to be a bad customer. One of my employees is going to have to work with them and like have to deal with their nonsense. I'm like, no, I'd rather just not. And so those are some of the things that have been going through my head recently.
I love it. And maybe not the content that would be in one of your go-to-market YouTube videos,
Exactly.
right? That's why we're here. Yeah, and I want to pause again. That was a lot, but I want to just touch on like the mindset side. That's the thing that, you know, even in our previous episode, right? We touched on that, which is like, you learn through experience. And it's the Alex Hormozy quote, right? The work works on you more than you work on it. And so that's why the work is in the right work is the answer, right? And it's going to work on you. I appreciate the context, because it kind of comes back to the beginning, where what I tell people a lot of times is folks who at least like are CEOs who want to start a podcast, for example, because that's kind of our domain, is like, you're not seeing business owners, you're seeing influencers. Do not try to act like those are the same thing, right? There are influencers who are business owners. And in that case, most of the time, they're paying $10,000 a month for somebody to run their account, to comment for them, to post for them. And then they're actually running a business maybe. But if it's not obvious, then they're definitely an influencer, right? So it's like people see even you, right? They're like, Chris probably outsources everything. This is all pre-record, you know. It's just that
it's so
seeing
funny.
It from the outside, man. But you're actually doing it. And the funniest part to me is the comments where you reply something that's straight logic and people just go crazy. But I respect that, man. I mean, there's people that would say like, why would you get it? Why would you do a comment, man? Why would you? It's like, you're just be a guy who owns 4 businesses, you know? But you really got to, at least for me, it's made me this, along with business coaching and life coaching and coaching in general. You got to really be, you got to pay attention to who you're taking advice from and who you're looking up to. And right. And this happens, right. And we'll look at it, right. One of your mentors, virtual, or I think you've met him before, but say Gary V, for example, right? It's like, you said, hey, I was saying this stuff 5 years ago. It's happening now. Well, that's a Gary model. Gary's been doing that for 20 years, right? But those are the type of people that we look up to. Hence why I'm looking at what's podcasting look like in 2030. It's my job to think like that. It's not, I don't have an option, right? It's just, I can't just think of today or tomorrow. I have to do that because that's what somebody at that caliber would do, you know? And so that's what I see with you too. I'm like, it's obvious that you've definitely had, you've been specific maybe about who your mentors are along the way and who you're looking up to. And this is a little bit past maybe B2B podcasting, but it really isn't, because you're going to just look at the next podcast who you think you're supposed to be like. And I still have CEOs, no matter how far removed they might be from anything, who think that like they could be Rogan or something, right? And it just blows my freaking mind, man. But It's a very interesting dynamic to do all this in the internet landscape where you can just abide by somebody's philosophy and you don't even know if they're even there on the other side.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to just double click on the point of like, be careful who you take your advice from. Because there's a very, what's worked for me, right? I can't speak for everybody. What's worked for me is pick a very select few people that have achieved things that you want, that happen to create content and live a lifestyle that resonates with you, not the flashy things, not the Lambo, but the things that they communicate, and then go in on that. And not the influencer that gets paid $500 to do a post and they pump up their likes with an engagement pod and they get 1,000 likes. Like, that's not the life you want to live. Trust me. And so, yeah, I think it's about narrowing the focus. If you listen to too many people's advice, it's going to be competing advice for sure. You will find places where one person's saying one thing, another person's saying the opposite thing, and then you have to try to figure it out. When you constrain it down, you get a lot more consistent advice that's non-conflicting. It certainly doesn't have to be me. There's probably people that are better out there for the things that you want to do, but for a specific set of people, my stuff really works for them. And I think that it's also really comfortable to outgrow a mentor. Like, I don't listen to Gary much anymore.
Not me either.
And it's not because his content isn't great. I'm sure it's great. I think that I got what I needed 5-7 years of listening to it. And then at some point, as a creator, as an artist, as a professional, as an entrepreneur, you get to a level where you don't need a mentor anymore. And it becomes a lot more of you learn by creating, you learn by getting feedback, you learn by making mistakes, in quotes. And I think that becomes a really powerful position as well. Sure. Are there people that I still listen to? Of course. Like, are there people that I need to call when there's something that I don't understand that I need some advice on? And I'm grateful that I have the people that know the stuff that I can call. Absolutely. It's not having an ego and saying, I know everything. It's recognizing that at some point, most of the learning that you get comes from doing, not listening.
Man, bombs being dropped. I would be remiss if I did not include some Chris Walker life advice in this episode. So I appreciate you, man.
Love it.
I love it. It's motivating. I had the privilege to do an episode with Rob Deerdeck a couple years ago, and I still come back. Like, I listened to that episode. My girlfriend thinks I'm crazy. She's like, why are you listening to your own podcast? But I come back and I listen to it every like 6 months because I just remind myself it's the same thing with these type of episodes. And that's another thing, which we don't have to go too far on, but it's like, people are accessible. You know, you don't have to take advice from some influencer who has 250,000 followers. Like, you could just like talk to people, send a cold DM. I mean, that's how we got connected. I was commenting, but I put in the work, right? If you want to talk to anybody in your domain, there's always like the top of each, individual niche. Yeah, comment on some posts, then send a nice DM. Don't be weird, right? But it's like it's accessible, And I'm with you though on the back to the Gary Vee. Yeah, man, it's like you grow as you grow. If you still have the same mentor 20 years later, it's like, not sure if we really got anywhere. Might be following the same advice. So somehow, some way, Chris, I'm going to bring this all home back to podcasting. I'm going to figure out how we're going to do it. But what I was curious about is let me give you an example. Okay. So imagine Podcast Principles comes into a company and we're going to be running the organic content side, right? And we're going to position the CEO or the founder, maybe the CMO, but some higher level C-suite as the talent, right? It's maybe somebody like your level, but maybe they're just not out there making the podcasts and videos yet, right? And we're going to run that organic content piece. Do you ever see that? Do companies that you work with hire agencies to cover their and manage and edit and post and run their organic content, like the LinkedIn posts, the TikToks, the YouTube? Does that happen?
It depends on the size. I think when you get to a certain level up top, companies are a lot more used to leveraging expert agencies to get a lot of the work and expertise done. And I think when you look lower market, companies have a lot of pride in like hiring a social media manager that does it themselves. And I think that companies, B2B companies, have historically tried to insource everything. And I think that it's flawed and wrong. And I think that companies miss out on a ton of value and experience and expertise and things like that that you just simply don't get from an employee that works at your company. There's a difference between us doing, doing work for 100 companies a year and seeing the pattern of we did this thing and it worked for 90 out of 100 companies versus one person doing one thing at your company. And just because your company does bad or your company does good, they have a sample size of one to say, oh, we did that and our company did bad. So I guess it doesn't work. Or the worst part of it is somebody works for a good company and does something and the company does good. And all of a sudden they attribute what they did to the company's success when most likely the company would have been successful without it. And then they go and tell thousands of people, oh, look, I worked for this company that IPO'd and here's what we did. And so all of you should do it. And then everybody's like, oh my God, they worked at HubSpot. I guess we should, and that they were successful in 2011. I guess we should do that for our company now. Yeah, I just think that the not having the scale of working with a lot of companies to see the patterns prevents you from really learning a lot of stuff. And it's no knock on in-house versus outsourced. The real model is the blend, where in-house people bring specific things that experts outside can't. Understanding the company, all the people inside of it, the market deeply. You're having a direct connection with your customer, and then externals, seeing what works at a lot of companies, expertise on that specific thing, process, automation, technology, IP. And I just think that people should be a lot smarter about blending those together. A lot of companies tie up in their pride in like doing it all themselves, and I think it's foolish doing all themselves in-house.
Yeah, and look at the dynamic, right? You pay somebody, they're an employee, versus you pay an agency. Which one of them is going to tell you the truth, do you think? Right? It's like the outside agency has a lot of skin in the game, meaning in the sense that they can't work with everybody. So they have to figure out, are we really going to be able to work with this company? You have an employee, they're supposed to tell you good stuff. They're supposed to tell you, like, we're going to add a platform. Well, let's do TikTok now. They're not supposed to tell you, hey, by the way, I don't think we should be posting on all 8 platforms. Maybe we should just do LinkedIn only because that one's bringing in 5 inbound booked calls a week. Like, this is not the incentive. The incentive is give us more stuff, right? And so I think that's the dynamic. I don't know if you agree with this, but that's the dynamic of the agency where, yes, back to your point, you need the agency to tell you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear. For me, that starts in even in the DMs, but definitely the first call. I'm figuring out if you can even do this. I'm not selling you services. I don't do that. I can't do that. I don't have enough bandwidth to try to do that. I have to figure out, are you really ready for this? Are you actually in the position to do something like this? Say if it's a podcasting, right? Your employees not doing that. They have kids, they have a house, they got a car payment, right? Like they need to just keep this ball rolling, right? And so I think there's an objectivity that comes with hiring outsourced help that is, for the most part, almost impossible to get in-house, in my opinion.
I couldn't agree more. And I think that, I see a lot of different stuff on LinkedIn, like agencies suck. Like we should do it all ourselves, right? Like, oh, all the agencies, burned us. Let's take a little second to reframe this here. Okay. So first off, in the marketing budget, if you spend money on agencies and you're less than a $200 million company, it's less than 5% of the 10% maximum of your total headcount budget, which means that 90% of it is spent on in-house employees. And so what happens is that agencies are just a scapegoat when things go wrong to protect the politics of the people internally. Oh, it wasn't our fault. We have 90% of the budget being spent on all these people to do stuff, but it's the agency's fault. By the way, we chose the agency. Like we guide the agency. We hold the agency accountable, but it's not our fault. They suck. And so this whole thing about like just blaming the agency is totally a game of politics to protect what's going on internally. But guess what? If you didn't have the agency, you would have hired a paid media manager and you would have gotten the same or worse results. I see it all the time. And this is no knock. It's literally no knock. But in-house employees, 95% of the time, are less qualified and less effective than external people.
Yep.
Hate to break it to you, like people aren't going to like what I just said there because it makes you think, but it is the truth. And the reason is because the external people have a different perspective, have a different level of experience, a different level of accountability, and they don't have to deal with your fucking politics internally.
Yep.
They don't have to just tell you what you want to hear, build a report so that you feel good. And sure, there are bad agencies. I know, like our customers go over there, they suck, and then they come over here. So I know that there are bad agencies, but we need to take accountability that we selected the agency. We evaluated them. We need to understand those nuances, that we take accountability for that. Just like if you hire someone, you hire a sales rep as a CRO, and that sales rep sucks and makes the company look bad and does the wrong things, that is your fault, not that person's fault. We just need a whole different level of accountability. Marketing generally just pushes accountability off and says, we had it yesterday. I was talking to a chief of staff and executive leaders. As I've gotten outside and work with other people on the executive team outside of marketing, I see it from a whole different angle. And so we have all, the company's CAC payback is 5.5 years. It's gone up by 3x over the past 3 years. They've lowered the marketing budget, pipeline is going down, and they're getting all these reports from marketing about how great things are going. And then they bring it up and they say there's no possible way that these things can be driving ROI. And they put together their multi-touch attribution report and say, no, look, everything's working. It's like, it's fucking impossible that the marketing is working when the company has a 5.5 year new logo CAC payback period.
It's just a version of
accountability.
But it's just a version of it's not my job, right?
Totally. It's just a version of I don't take accountability.
Yeah. Well, yeah, exactly. Report. Here's a report, right? So is there a leadership component there, though, that needs to be solved too?
Totally. It's across the board. I think that many marketing teams are set up to fail. They're driven in the wrong direction with the wrong KPIs. They get constrained to only do things that are the best practices that the company's been doing for 10 years that aren't as effective anymore. And I have empathy because I know that a CMO, average tenure for a CMO is 18 months. But I know many CMOs, if they come in at 6 months and say, the stuff that we're doing is dumb, is not smart, I'm going to bring a better idea to the table. Here's something new that we could do. Many of them wouldn't last 18 months because they try to change something. And so it's a tough game. You got a cushy $500,000 a year CMO job. Like, why do you want to bring something to the table that's going to risk your job and get you fired, and then you have to go and find a different one? I think that the whole system needs to be rethought. I think it starts with the CEO. The CEO also takes the most of the brunt when marketing doesn't work. Has to sell more of their company so they can raise more money for investors while they burn money on marketing that doesn't work. So, like, they take most of the brunt of it, and I think that they need to take the most ownership over fixing it as well.
And and on the agency side, right? Like, there are CMOs who are totally in our belief system, in our category, right? Like, I've worked with them.
Amazing.
I've
talked to them.
We've went from
I love
company
them.
to, like, they've jumped and we've stayed with them. Like, it's incredible, actually. But that's the thing too. So you can't go, yes, if 70-80% of companies are like this, well, okay, well, then you got to find the 20%, and that's what this content does, though. There's CMOs that won't ever see this, and if they see it, they will just be like, cool.
Yeah, and I know like top 1% CMOs, arguably the best CMOs I've ever worked with, that 1, 2, 5 years into working for a company, the company blocks them from doing great work. Politics, siloed departments, putting, taking certain things out of their mandate and giving it to some different department. And so I get it. I see the best people also getting stuck, which is sad. And it's actually, as that leader, as that person that's stuck and blocked, it is soul sucking. I've been there before. And then you have the choice, especially if you're like locked up with stock options and things like that, you're basically stuck. It's like, give away millions of dollars in stock options to leave so I can be happy, or continue to live in this like less than ideal situation where my creativity is stunted and I have to sit through fucking 8 hours of politicking meetings and then we do nothing. And that's in big company land. So for the people that are an entrepreneur or work at a small company, maybe you don't get exposed to that. But like at $100 million company, most of the time spent as a executive leader is administrative. You're not even doing fun work. You're sitting in meetings, you're building decks, and most of the time you're not even making any different decisions. And that, so I've watched, the $300 million CMO move to the 1 million ARR startup, and immediately, their budget went from $35 million a year to 1.3 million, and they're 100 million times more productive and happier. And I think that's empowering too. So
it's out there, but
it's risky.
It
can be risky.
Well, and look, hey, if these problems didn't exist, you wouldn't be here. And so there's that side of it too. Hey, we know a lot of CMOs who go fractional and then they start an agency. And then, so I'm not telling anybody to do that, but I mean, shit,
And
we are in the best time to do it.
There's a lot of CMOs that go fractional and then go back. There's a lot of people that go fractional and then go back in-house because it's lonely. That it's actually hard to do your own financials and make sure that you have enough customers and to take care of those customers. And when one leaves and you lose $10,000 a month and you don't have one to replace them, it starts to get a little hard. And so it feels nice to go and be a fractional, and some people can be successful with it. And I have, so I'm not telling you not to do it. I think many people can, but it's not easier. It's easier to sit in and collect a W-2 paycheck.
Mic drop. Listen, I'm going to try to do some questions, Chris. I know we're running out of time. If I could keep you for 7 minutes, that would be awesome.
Yeah, we can go right until the top of the hour.
Okay, perfect. So I just hit my group up. So we're going to a few clients first to see if they have anything. I did see one at the top. By the way, for everybody listening now, just feel free to drop. We're just going to get to what we can get to in rapid fire. You're so good, Chris, that I love Q&A, but I love this conversation, man. So I hope the audience can forgive me on that because, man,
we'll get a bunch in right now. I'll get them in fast. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and also on topic of your questions, if you have them, let us know if we should do this again. Because, we're doing one guest a month. So, come back in a few months, man. I'd love to do that. Cool. The question I saw at the top a long time ago was, what do you use to track your LinkedIn analytics, and do you track them?
Nothing. Don't care.
I love it, man. I love it.
I track my profit and loss statement. I track my business metrics.
There you go. That's how. So what is all right. Shout out to the chat. Been firing off lately, guys. I'm solo dolo. I'm producing and interviewing and doing everything at the same time. So apologies. But we'll get to the first question. Colleen, Jody, Lindsay, thank you guys so much. Dennis for hopping in here. David. Question from Omar is, what is the most underrated strategy people are not taking advantage of? What a great question. I guess marketing strategy.
Some combination of short form vertical video on social media. LinkedIn's at least trying to go there. Like, and if you want a video or a post that goes for 1 million impressions today, it's going to be in that format. Just like TikTok and YouTube Shorts and Instagram Reels, LinkedIn will be 3 to 5 years behind and then adopt the prevailing medium. So that story's already been written. And then I think there's the live Q&A call with your customer where you be the best consultant for your market and give them the best advice for free, 1 hour a week. Anybody can show up. You get insights. I think it's just such a high leverage activity. And then you get the podcast, you get the video content, you can make that into blogs. 1 hour a week, get the production team that does all the post-production, and yeah, high leverage action.
We do that too. So if anybody needs a little, you guys want to talk podcast, let me know. All right, cool. Jared Thompson, shout out to him. He was a member of our group. My question is pertaining to how can a solopreneur or small team maximize automation and AI in marketing? Anything new on that front?
Unless you're doing it for your product, you don't need to.
I love it. If it doesn't make dollars, it doesn't make sense.
There's a level where productivity and automation matter, but it's not when you're a solopreneur. What matters as a solopreneur is, how do I use one channel to get customers? How do I build one product that I can deliver repeatably that gets the customer result where they stay long enough? How do I structure my financials so I make money? Figure out the automation and process and things like that. Once you get that stuff done, $3-5 million in annual revenue.
Boom, boom, boom. I love it, Chris. Shout out to Craig. We'll hit him next because he's next. Is there something that agencies don't understand about the way these top 1% CMOs think?
I think broadly that that agencies don't understand business metrics and aren't able to communicate the business metrics and help their clients communicate the metrics to the executive team. Marketing leaders struggle with it. All the people that they hire struggle with it. All the agencies and external people, most of them also struggle with it. I own an agency, right? We're not perfect at it either. I'm not like being like, we're great and everybody else sucks. It's just it's a marketing industry problem.
I love it. I think I might answer this one, but company of 8, team of 1 for marketing and sales, best podcast cadence. I would say it depends on your goals, but I don't know, averages once a week. That's all I would say. Let's figure out what you need.
As much as possible. When I was rocking and rolling at the beginning, I did 5 to 7 podcasts a week. We were publishing 3 to 5 episodes a week. And so is going to the gym 5 days a week better than 1 day a week? Maybe.
No, I saw a video. It was like, you don't know anybody who brushes their teeth once a week. So why would you go to the gym once a week? It's the same thing. Yeah. I don't know anybody who has a podcast, they're top 50 and they only have done 2 episodes or 7 episodes, right? It doesn't exist.
The value is how fast you get better. So how fast, it's not really about the volume of production. It's how good at getting do you get. So I think that's a key insight there.
We kind of touched on it, but resources you recommend sharing with the CEO and CMO to help them understand why typical marketing metrics aren't the best measure of success.
Take the core marketing KPI and then map that against the core financial KPIs that you deliver to the board and see how correlated they are. Take website traffic and then correlate that with growth rate. If everything's going great, they'll be correlated. In the last couple of years, you'll get almost an inverse correlation. And so the problem with marketing metrics is that marketing metrics can look like they're working while the business results decline and go wrong. And so we need to have them in place where it's fundamentally impossible for marketing metrics to look good while business results don't.
Last question. Shout out to Edward for the last one. What is your take on investments in brand versus demand, balancing near versus long-term goals in B2B SaaS?
I disagree with the terminology generally. I think the terminology is vague, broad, open to interpretation, incomplete and inadequate to describe the different levels and objectives within marketing. So I think it would be better framed as strategy, product marketing, analyst relations, positioning, competitive intelligence, messaging, the art of marketing that's actually business strategy and makes sales better, makes retention better, impacts the whole customer lifecycle. Then you have demand creation. How do we go out and get target accounts to be engaged with our business? How do we have them coming to our events, meeting with us in person, asking for a demo, being on our website, whatever? Supply chain. How do we get all these different signals so that our team can do prospecting, especially for high value deals? And then prospecting. And I think that that marketing should part of marketing should be strategy, and the other part of it should be rebranded to pipeline creation and should own the BDRs and prospecting and take full accountability to pipeline creation and leave this 30-50% of companies are doing it now because it makes total sense. You need one level of accountability on creating pipeline, not this shared accountability between marketing and SDRs and partner and sales sourced.
Boom shakalaka, man.
Boom.
Dude, that's it. We'll do 6 hours next time so we can fit it all in.
All right.
Yeah, Chris, I'll let you go, man. Thank you so much, man. Appreciate you.
Thanks y'all for being here. Hope it was valuable. Thanks, Ryan.
We'll do it again soon. You got it, buddy. I'll see you soon.
Bye.
Guys, I'm going to stay on for a few minutes. Shout out to everybody in the chat. This is what we do. You guys know the deal. Listen, your competitors are listening to somebody's podcast. It might as well be yours. That's my pitch for today. That was our Live with Chris Walker. If you enjoyed it, please let us know. We will have Chris back on. And when we do, we can answer even more of your questions. My goal for next time is to actually have folks come up and ask questions one-on-one. So that would be fantastic. If you're interested in that, just make sure you leave us a comment here in the chat and just let us know you want to do that for next time. Make sure you connect with me. Make sure you connect with Chris. You know the deal. He's a legend. He's a beast. That's why he's here. And that's why we do this. We bring on business leaders once a month. In this case, it's the first Tuesday of the month, and that's really that's the cadence as well. My name is Ryan Sullivan. This is exactly what we do. Like I said, your competitors, or your prospects, your competitors, all of them, they're listening to somebody's podcast, and it might as well be yours. So thank you so much. Make sure to connect with me, and we will see you guys on the next one. Deuces. Appreciate y'all.